Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another learning session for Networking 101, where we will be going deep dive for your Azure networking concepts. My name is Rajat Prakash, and I am a Microsoft certified trainer and also a solution architect expert. The concept which we are going to have a discussion for today is your virtual networking. Okay, so virtual networking is entirely a backbone of your Microsoft Azure. If you are familiar with the networking part, or even if you're not familiar with the networking, it's completely fine, because today what we are going to discuss is the complete introduction part of your networking, how the networking has been introduced in the cloud. So those things we are going to discuss, and we are going to proceed accordingly. So before we are going to learn about the cloud networking, so let's understand what is like on-premise and on-premise networking. Okay, so I believe a lot of you have idea about what is on-prem networking or on-premise setup, right? So let me just have a quick discussion on that. So there is a term which we often used in the IT sector is on-prem. Okay, and cloud computing, under which your Azure has came, AWS and GCP. So these are the some of the vendors in the cloud, right? So these companies provide the cloud services. Okay, so that's why they are called vendors in the cloud computing. Now, what is on-prem? What do you understand by the word on-prem? Yes. So customer itself maintain the servers and the infrastructure. So let's understand what is on-prem. So here in the picture, can understand that these office of the respective customer. So here they are managing their whole infrastructure. Okay. So that term to be as a on-prem. But whereas in the cloud, so here the customer do not need to manage the infrastructure, but in the on-prem customer need to manage these infrastructure. But cloud is managed by the providers. So now we are proceeding with these lessons, okay, which is coming under your Azure Virtual Network. Today, we are going to start with our basic understanding that what is virtual networks, what do you mean by the virtual network in the cloud? Followed by, we are going to understand what are the concept of IP address. Okay, so I will be taking care of those things, like if you have not aware about what is IP address, how to create the IP address in the cloud, those things we are going to cover. Followed by, we are going to cover about the NSGs, network security groups. Okay, how the security you can provide in the cloud. Okay, and fourth, you are going to see about the one important tool in the cloud networking, that is your Azure Firewall. Followed by this, the DDoS protection. Finally, we are going to see about the most important topic, that is hybrid connectivity models. Okay, so our first topic of discussion is your virtual networks. Okay, so today our discussion will be limited to the Azure networking concepts. Okay, so we will be talking about the virtual network in terms of Azure, Microsoft Azure. Obviously, you will be having a certain other provider like AWS, GCP, Alibaba, other cloud are also are there, but we are mainly focused on the Azure side. Okay, so the icons which you are able to see on my screen, these are the icons you will be getting for your cloud resources. Okay, so which has been having a direct contact in your network. So let's suppose load balancer is a part of your network. Application gateway is a kind of a load balancer, which is a part of a virtual network. Again, traffic manager is also a load balancer, which is a part of your virtual network. Again, VPN gateway is also one component, which again comes under the virtual network category. So these resources which you are able to see on my left hand side, it comes under the category of networking. So here you are adopting the cloud solution that can save time and simplify operation. In the on-prem setup, what we are managing, port, your cables, your wires, your switches, everything you are managing in the on-prem, right? But in the cloud, you do not need to manage those wires, cables, RJ45 port, your LAN cable, server room, everything will be taken care of by the Microsoft Azure. So here we are deploying the network, but we are deploying it virtually. That's why it is called as virtual network. Okay, that's why it is called as virtual network. So even if you want to access the network, it will be virtually. Even if you want to provision the network, it will be virtually. So Azure requires the same type of networking functionality as on-prem infrastructure, and also Azure networking offer a wide range of services and products. That's what we have discussed here. Okay, so guys, I have tried creating these slides in such a manner so that even if you are coming from non-technical background as well, you will be able to get these things in a very simpler way. You just need to follow the whole session throughout, and definitely at the end of the session, you will be having a good understanding of cloud networking. Okay, now how the virtual network looks like. So on the left hand side, which you're able to see here, is your virtual network. Okay, and within the virtual network, we are having a component called as subnet. Under that subnet, our virtual machines resides. As a part of the basic understanding, what you need to know is that virtual network is there, and within whenever you are deploying any resources inside the virtual network, it always use subnet. So virtual network is the like main level. Okay, at the main level, and followed by you are having a subnet under which your resources resides. So here you can see we are having two virtual machine but residing inside the subnet. So always remember that whenever you are deploying any sorts of resource or service, it will be always being deployed under some subnet. Okay, so virtual network is a main house under which we are having a particular rooms that is called as subnet, you can say. So more you will get to know when we will discuss the IP address concept. On the left hand side, we are having a cloud VNet. Okay, and it is connected to your on-prem also. So how it can be done, we will be able to discuss these things in lesson number 6, that is your hybrid connectivity model, where we are going to understand about P2S, S2S and other scenarios. Okay, but as of now, if you want to summarize this particular slide, what I have just now told, virtual network, under the virtual network, you will be having multiple subnets. Okay, and within the respective subnet, your resources are placed. So whenever you are creating the particular resource inside any of the virtual network, it will always reside under the subnet. Now this is what like a subnet provide you logical division. So here in front of your screen, what you are seeing is that the particular subnets, whenever you are creating the subnet, you will be able to get a certain kind of address range. Okay, so what is this address range, I will going to explain you. Okay, what I just now told, I am just summarizing that. So here you can see that this is a particular symbol of your Azure virtual network in the cloud, and within that virtual network, you are having a component called subnet, and within the subnet, you are having multiple resources created. Okay, so this is just like a basic understanding how the resources have been placed in the cloud network. Okay, what is this? This is called NSG. We will talk in detail. Let's talk some basics of IP address. Now let's understand that what is IP address. Okay, so let's suppose I am just explaining that. So let's suppose this is a particular person, and this is one of the your machine, any machine or any server. Server means a server is a particular component which is having the data. Okay, just a machine. Now this person wants to inquire or wants to get some data from this server. So how this person will be able to get the data from this server? Okay, must be he must be having some host name or must be having some address. Okay, so this machine is having a unique address. Let's suppose this is one of the address of this machine. Let's suppose this is one of the address of this machine. So this the machine within the network, and this is the network, right? Okay, this is the network. So guys, what I'm saying that this dotted line of this blue one is a network. Okay, this is network, and within that you're having one server. Now if this person wants to inquire or wants to get some data from this thing, this particular server, they must be having a particular address called as IP address. So whenever we need to identify a particular server within the network, we call that address to be as a IP address. Okay, so every machine is having a unique IP address. Even if you go to the Google, even if you just go to the Google and type my public IP address. Okay, my public IP address. So your system public IP address, you can find it from here. Okay, so what is public, what is private, we will talk. Okay, but just I'm telling that whenever I'm just talking about the IP address. So what is IP address? IP address means whenever you want to identify the server in the network, you must be having a particular respective IP address for that. Okay, now IP address is of two types. That is your private and your public. Okay, private IP address and public IP address. Let's suppose I'm again having one server in the network. Okay, and this is one of the person. So can anyone tell me, if this person is outside the network, which IP address we should use to access this server? Public? Yes. And if another person is within the network, which IP address they should use? Private. Correct. IP address, you know that if you want to identify a server in the network, that must be having a respective IP address, that is called IP address. Followed by that thing, we are having something called private as well as public. So private IP address is what? Whenever you want to access the respective server, okay, within the network, that IP address which you're using for the private IP. Okay, but this person is using which IP address? Public IP address to access the server. Okay, I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay, now, so if this is clear, let's talk further on this. Now, public and private IP address is divided into, you can say, or we can more focus. Let's talk about the private one. So it can be of IPv4 and or it can be of IPv6. Okay, so this is a version of your IP address. So IPv4 is generally of 32 bits. Okay, and your IPv6 is generally of 128 bits. Okay, IPv4 is of 32 bits and IPv6 is of 128 bits. So now what do you mean by bit? Bit means 101010, like that. Okay, so that what is the meaning of bits. Okay, what is version v4? So version v4, so we will let's understand, whenever any of the IP address is written like this. Okay, how it is written I will talk. Okay, let's suppose it is 23 64 89 76. This I am telling for those who are completely new to that networking. Okay, so here you can see, whenever you have got this kind of IP address written, where it has been filled in 4 different space. This is one space, this is one space, this is one space, this is one space, right? So this IP address is called IPv4 IP address. Is it clear? Okay, so and what is IPv6 address? I will show you directly from our practical part. Okay, so that you will get to know. So there is a particular framework that is called RFC 1918. Okay, so it particularly say that every organization which is going to deploy the virtual network or any of the networks in their organization, they need to follow some of the standard which is been available by the RFC 1918. Okay, now what is this RFC 1918? So if you go to the Google RFC, yes, this one. Okay, so it will help you how you can allocate the address allocation for the private internet. So always remember one simple thing, that whenever we are creating the Azure virtual network, we are creating the private virtual network during its creation. We are not creating the public IP address. Public IP address is a separate resource. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that whenever you are creating the virtual network, you are using the private IP address. Okay, is it clear? I hope that is clear to everyone. Okay, now RFC 198 has told that there are certain classes of IP address, that is class A, class B, class C. Class A starts from 10.0.0.0 to 10.255.255.255, right? So here you can see that I am filling the 4 spaces, right? 4. So this is which kind of IP address? IPv4, yes or no? Which kind of IP address it is? IPv4. This is also the IPv4. So they are giving the range. If any of the IP address belong in this range, it will be class A IP address. Clear? Similarly, for class B, if it is like 172.16.0.0 to, you can say 172.31.255.255. Okay, so if your IP address follows under this range, Okay, so this will be class B IP address. For the class C, you are having something called as 192.168.0.0 to what we called it 192.168.255.255. So here you can see that which IP address I'm using, IPv4 address. IPv4 address, one IP address to other. This is a range. So within this range, if any of the IP address came, it belongs to class A. Within this range, if any IP address came, it belongs to class B. Within this range, if any IP address came, it belongs to class C. Is it clear now? Yes or no? Now let's talk directly from one example. Let's suppose I have written this IP address. Can anyone tell me which class IP address it is? Just now I have shown you which class IP address is. So it's a class A IP address. So this is which kind of IP address? IPv4 or IPv6? IPv4, absolutely correct. Yes. Now if I put slash, so let's understand scenario. Let's talk it like this. So if you have only one IP address, okay, so this can be assigned to only one resource, correct? Yes or no? You can assign this thing only to the one resource, right? You cannot assign these things to the group of resources. But in the virtual network, in the Azure virtual network, you will be having plenty of resources. Am I correct? Yes or no? This single IP address won't work in that case. Yes or no? Whenever you are creating the virtual network, this single IP address won't be useful for you, right? So in that case, in order to help you with the so how you will get the various multiple IP address? How you will get the multiple IP address? If you put slash, okay, if you put slash, and if you write any of the number, how it has been written, I will tell you everything, but just understand that you can, if you are writing any number between 8 to 32, okay, so this will help you to gain the multiple IP address. Now what I just now say, let's take it one example. Let's suppose after slash I have written the number 24. Okay, I have written the number 24. So this is one of the IP address, and this is called slash, and after that I have written one number. Now what is this? Whenever you will find such thing written, or whenever you will find such thing in the virtual network, it is called CIDR block. That is classless inter-domain routing notation. It is what? Classless inter-domain routing notation. That is CIDR. Now what is this? CIDR will help you to allocate the respective IP addresses to your resources. Okay, so let's talk. If I talk like this, 10.0.0.0/24. Okay, this is one thing. Now, so how it works like that? So here you are not getting a one IP address. Here you are getting a group of IP address with it. You're not getting a one IP address, you're getting a group of IP address. Now how to calculate that, how many IP address you are getting? Okay, how to calculate that, how many IP address you are getting? So in this case, what is this is like, let's suppose number of IP address, how would you calculate is your 2 to the power n minus 2, where n stands for total bit. Can anyone tell me what is the total bit of this IPv4 address? I have written in the previous slide. Total bit minus subnet mask. Now, what is subnet mask? Subnet mask is the value written after slash. Subnet mask is the value written after slash. Okay, so if you understand this formula, you will be able to calculate that how many number of IP address you are getting from this. Okay, so let's talk it like this. Here, so what is 2 to the power n? N stands for total bit. What is the total bit? Total bit means 32. Yes or no? IPv4 address is of 32 bit. Yes or no? Right? 32 bit minus subnet mask. What is the subnet mask value? 24. The answer will be how much? The answer will be 8. Right? So what will be the formula now? 2 to the power 8 minus 2. 2 to the power 8 minus 2. Now what will be the answer? The answer will be how much IP address you are getting? 256. Yes or no? Okay. Is it clear? So here, but in this formula, there is some change actually. Okay. Instead of 2, you should be written as 5. Okay. In the cloud. So what I'm saying to say here is that this formula is correct for the normal networks. Okay, for the normal networking, but in terms of the cloud networking, it should be 2 to the power n minus 5. 2 to the power n minus 5. Now why it is 5, I will tell you. So what will be the answer? The answer will be 251. Is it? Yes or no? Correct. So now why we are doing minus 5? Because first 3 IP and last 2 IP from the pool is been reserved by the Microsoft Azure. First 3 IP and the last 2 IP has been reserved. First 3 IP and last 2 IP is been reserved by the Microsoft Azure. So whenever you are giving, so what I'm trying to say here is that the first 3 IP address from this address space and the last 2 IP address from this address space will be reserved by Microsoft. You cannot allocate those IP address to any of the resources. Now, what does it means that let's suppose tomorrow, if you are creating any of the server under this particular address space, the first private IP, what it will get 10.0.0.4. Understood now? The private IP address of that machine, what it will got 10.0.0.4. There will be no IP address forming like 10.0.0.1, 2, 3. No. First 3 IP and last 2 IP will be reserved. Is it clear now? Understood, guys? Yes. Now clear, everyone? So this is just like a basic understanding. So one more example I can quickly show you, since it's so then we will proceed further. Let's suppose we will take another example. Okay. Now one more thing okay. One more important thing, 10.0.0 slash, you can put it like any number starting. So here you can put starting from 8 till 32, right? Why 32? Because this is a total mask, total allowable limit, right? So 32 starting from the 8. Okay. So why 8? Can anyone tell me why we are starting with 8? So let's talk about this. Is these 4 spaces which you are getting is of 1 byte. Is of 1 byte. Are you getting? Byte means BYTE, byte. Okay, this is 1 byte, and again this is 1 byte. Is it clear? Now 1 byte is equals to 8 bits. Okay, 1 byte is equals to 8 bits. So here, so if I write like this, so this is means this space is 1 byte, 1 byte, 1 byte, 1 byte, 1 byte. Okay, on the top of it you are having any value 10.0.0.0. Okay, now what I'm trying to say that it is, so whenever you, so here 1 byte is equals to 8 bits. That's why you can write the number from 8 to 32. So here, if it is 8 to the power 1, it is 8. Now, so here, if you are putting 16, 2 8 just 16. Okay. So if you, so for 8 to the power 1 means you are reserving 1 space. If it is 8 into 2, you are reserving these 2 spaces. If it is 3, you are reserving these 3. Okay. So just as a basic understanding, what we develop is that you can have any value starting from 8 to, you can have any value starting from 8 to 32. Okay. Got it? For your subnet mask. So let's talk in one more example. I hope this is clear, right? Anyone having any doubt? No. So let's talk about, if you talk about this example 16. So here again the formula likes 2 to the power n minus 5. What will be the value of n? Can anyone tell me? 32 minus 16. Okay. So the value will be 16. N value should be 16, right? So what will be the formula? 2 to the power 16 minus 5. So the answer will be your 65531. Clear? So this much number of IP address you will be getting when you will deploy this kind of address space. Okay. Is it clear, guys? When you will take this kind of address space, you will be getting this much number of IP address in your network. Got it? No, for the cloud, Azure cloud, it will be always -5. For the network, normal networking, it will be 2 IPs will be reserved. Okay, it's not a silly question. It's completely fine. Okay, so here you can see that this is your virtual network. So within that, you are having a particular thing called a subnet, and within that, you will be having certain resources on it. And on the top of it, you are having a particular. So again, this is second example of your VNet. It will be having a separate subnet this time. This is subnet 1, gateway subnet, and Azure Firewall subnet. So these are the multiple subnets available. Okay, so some of the resources requires a dedicated subnet. That's what you're able to see in the picture. That is, VPN gateway require a dedicated subnet. No other resource should residing in that subnet when you provision this gateway subnet. Similarly, if you deploy the Azure Firewall resource, no other resources should be provisioned when you are deploying the Azure Firewall subnet. Okay, I hope that is clear. IP address we have already seen in the notepad, okay, diagram also. So if you want to provision these resources, so let's talk about these things. Now, here you can see that if you want to access this particular server, okay, let's suppose if you want to particularly access this server from the internet or from any one of the outside the network, you need a public IP address. Similarly, but within the network, these machines will be recognized with the, but this machine can contact to these backend server using the private IP address. So when we are using the private IP address, when we are using the public IP address, that concept needs to be clear. Okay. So in what scenarios we are using the IP address as a public as well as private? So public should be internet facing. Let's suppose if your resources is internet facing and you want to request for your respective resource over to the internet, then definitely you should be using the public IP address. Similarly, if it is a private IP address, so let's suppose if you having one virtual network, let's consider one scenario. If you're having let's talk like this. If you're having one virtual network, okay, one VNet, and within the subnet, you are having one virtual machine, two virtual machine, right? We are having two virtual machine. So they both can talk to each other. They both can talk to each other, right? So within the VNet, they can talk to each other using the private IP address space. They don't need a public IP address space, right? Is it clear? These two machines belong to the same VNet. These two machines belong to the same VNet and they can talk to each other using the private IP address. Okay. So this is just a scenario where we are using the private IP address, where we are using the public IP address. But one thing you need to take care that whenever you are deploying the virtual networks in the cloud, Azure virtual network in the cloud, always remember that we are taking only private IP address space. Public IP address space is a separate resource which you are deploying from the Azure portal separately. Okay. So never confuse with those things when you're deploying the resources. Okay, now these are the some of the use case for your public IP address. Let's suppose if you are having the virtual machine. So within the virtual machine, who is providing you the IP address? So this network interface card is the IP address. When we say that virtual machine is having the IP address like so and so, so that is complete a wrong statement. Why? Because within the virtual network, we are having a NIC card. Who is providing the IP address to the server? Okay, that is network interface card. Now your IP address, public IP address can be dynamic or static. Okay, if you want, so let's suppose let's talk it like this. If you want that your respective virtual machine IP address has been shared with the various stakeholder or the client, and you don't want to change it again and again over the network, definitely you should make it as a static one. Okay. Similarly, you are having some load balancer, you're having some other resources also. If they are internet facing, in a very simple words, if they are internet facing, they needs to be public. As well as if you don't don't want to get it changed very often, just go for the static one. Static means fixed, dynamic means you're changing. Okay, the IP address is changing. Now, what do you mean by the private IP address space? Private IP address means whatever we have discussed in creation. So it will be varying from your class A, whether you are choosing class A, class B, class C. Okay. Just for the knowledge point of view and for the respective interviews point of view, you should be knowing that which IP address range belongs to which class. Even if you look for this site also, here, if you go slide down, so here you can see this thing. You can see that this particular, this is your class A, this is your class, this is your class B, and this is your class C. Okay, so if you want to read more about these things, I will just paste in the chat this particular link. So this is the private IP address. Again, you are having the scenario called dynamic and static. Okay, so it depends upon the use cases actually, where you need a static one, where you need a dynamic one. Okay, so now we will go to the portal to see some of the interesting practical before we head over to the new topic called NSGs. Okay, so let's go and create one virtual network. Okay, so I hope those who are those who are joining for the very first time in the cloud session, so this will be your portal.azure.com. So this will be your tool. Okay, so let me just show you. Yeah, so this will be your tool for the whenever you are performing any sorts of practical, you are always coming on portal.azure.com and you are going inside it and you are doing a lot of practicals for it. Okay, so it's very easy to use. Okay, these are the options which you can see, and if you don't know where to create the respective resources, just type the virtual networks over here and it will show you. Okay, let's suppose tomorrow you want to deploy other resources also, virtual machine also, just type over here and it will be showing you over here. Okay, so these things are there. But as far as our main topic is concerned, so we will just type here virtual network. I'm logging in for the very first time, right? I don't know where to go in the Azure portal. So what I will type, virtual networks. Okay, I will type virtual network, and here we are getting multiple resources of the networking. So here you can see some of the criteria that if you are getting virtual network in the bracket classic, whenever you are getting any such resource where it is written in the bracket classic means that particular resource is coming from the older portal. That older portal means, so Microsoft Azure has came in 2010. From 2010 to 2014, we are having some particular portal called Classic Portal. And after the Classic Portal, so this resource, if you are deploying, this will belongs to the old portal. But after 2014 to till now, we are having a newer portal called Azure Resource Manager Portal. Okay, so always try to deploy with these things, the resource which without your classic one. Okay, here it is written classic. Always try to deploy the resource without classic one. Okay, so this is the resource from the newer portal. I can click on the virtual networks. Okay, let's click on the virtual network and click on. So here you can find the list of the respective virtual network which is present on your subscription. Okay, so uh, those who are familiar, but those who are not familiar, so I will just quickly tell you something. So for deploying any of the resource, you need a subscription. So in a very simple word, subscription is just like a kind of your electricity bill you're getting at your home, right? Where your respective resources are running, television, AC, refrigerator, everything is running, right? So it is similar to your electricity bill, okay, at your home. Okay, similarly, followed by the whenever you are creating any of the resources within the Azure, you require a subscription. Okay, if you have a subscription, so there are multiple subscription available, pay as you go, free trial. That is not a part of our discussion, but just I am telling that whenever you are deploying any of the resource, it needs a subscription. And after going to the respective subscription, what you need a resource group. Okay, that is called RG, resource group. RG is nothing but a logical box where you are keeping the resources. So it's just like a empty box, empty container box where you are filling up the resources. Clear? One resource, two resource. Now what is resource? Resource means your virtual network, storage account, your virtual machine, everything will be keep in this RG. So in the newer portal, you cannot create the resource without resource group. You cannot create the resource without resource group. Okay, and once you select the resource group, after that you can create your desired resource. Let's suppose you are creating virtual network. Now you can create it, but these two are very important steps you need to be followed. Okay, so that's why I have given you a very basic understanding of this thing. Even if you don't know anything about cloud, anything of Azure, this will help you to gain the insights. Okay, so I believe this is fine. So let's go to, now let's click on the virtual network. So this is how you can create the virtual network. So you can click on this create option. Once you click on create, you can see that you're getting the subscription. Okay, after that you will get a resource group. See, subscription resource group. I am grouping the resource. So I can click on create new. I can see VNet RG. Okay. So virtual network RG, I can select and I can click on OK. Okay. So this name should be unique within your subscription. So if you are creating one name of the resource group, which is already present in your subscription, it will throw an error. Okay. So always try to look for these cases. So VNet, now I will just type VNet 001. Okay. Now, under which network you are deploying your resource, like under which region you are deploying the resources. So I am deploying the resources in central US. Okay. So I can select central US. You have multiple region, right? You have multiple regions means respective regions where you will be having your virtual network will be created. Okay. So I'm just selecting central US. I can select next. So once I click on this, I will be automatically getting this particular IPv4 address space, right? IPv4 address space. But I want to add it my own. I can click on this delete button and I will add what I will add. So I am going to add one particular IP address. Just tell me which class it is. 1.16. So can anyone will say that which class is this? Class B? Everyone agree? Right? So this is the IP address space of my virtual network. And if you want to see what is IPv6 address, you can see like this. See, IPv6 address are written like this. Okay. So in the multiple corporate environment, if you talk about the production environment, you will be having the IPv6 address, but mostly you will be dealing with your IPv4 address space. Okay. So now I am going to create one virtual network, but within that I will be also having some particular thing that is called subnet. Okay. So where I am keeping my resources, I can click on subnet. Okay. Let's click on this subnet. And here, once you click on the subnet, you can say, so without subnet, you cannot create a virtual network. Without subnet, you cannot create a virtual network. So subnet A, I should select, and range. So here you can see that I have my IP address range. So always remember that whatever the range your address space you are selecting for this particular IP address for your VNet, within that only your subnet range should be there. Are you getting what I'm saying? Let's suppose I am using class A for this. So I should use class A only, but within this range. So what will be my range? If I type any number called 15, okay, any number, so it is 16. Okay. So the range, so this is one address space, but in order to allocate this subnet within this range, I should be putting the number greater than 16. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? Let's suppose I'm just giving you a shortcut trick how so that you will never get an error while creating the virtual network. I have put /16, right? So if you calculate the number of IP address for this particular case, you can do it separately, no issue. Number of IP address which you are getting for this one, and the number of IP address which you're getting for this one should be lesser than this particular IPv4 address space. So that's why I should put any number greater than 16. If I put 17, it won't throw me any error. Okay. Let's suppose if I put 24. Okay. So you can see that how many IP address I'm getting? 251 plus 5 Azure reserved. That's why I told you to -5. I hope now you got it right. 251 you are getting the IP address for your usage, but Microsoft is capturing it 5 IP address at their end. They were not giving it to you. Okay. Is it clear now? I hope that makes sense. So I can put it add. I'm not going to discuss these further details because we are mostly familiar. We are mostly discussing over the very basics part. Okay. So I'm just clicking on review plus create. So this is I'm just creating a one simple virtual network for your use case. So you can see that which IP address I am creating. I am creating the IP address called private IP address space. Okay, so this will create your virtual network. Okay, now once let it be created. Now we are having one particular resource called public IP address. If you type public IP, you will be getting this thing. So always remember that whenever you are creating the resources, whenever you are creating the virtual network, private IP address space you are creating. Okay, you are not creating the public IP address. Public IP address is a separate resource which we should need to create separately. Okay, I can click on the public IP address resource. Okay, this is one of the list which I am getting for my respective public IP of my VM001. Okay, how I can create my public IP address? You can click on create. Once you click on create, let's click on create. And here I'm getting some basic option. So I will be exploring only some basic option, which IPv4 version, IPv6 also, you can create both. Okay. One IP will be created for v4 and one IP will be created for v6. I'm selecting v4 version. What kind of SKU? SKU means if, so there will be certain kind of SKU will be available. So if you talk about the basic and standard, so depending upon your, let's talk scenario, like if you're having the load balancer, which a particular device which is balancing the load. Okay, so these SKU needs to be followed or compatible with load balancer SKU if you tomorrow want to attach this public IP address to your load balancer. So what I'm saying in the very simple words, if you have keep your SKU for your load balancer as standard, then it needs to be standard. If you have keep your load balancer SKU as a basic, then you need to be it as a basic. But if you are creating a simple virtual machine, I am just putting it as a basic option. Okay, and I can say that public IP 001. Okay, so this is the name I am giving. Which kind of IP address you are creating? It should be changing, or do you want to fix it? If you want to keep it as a static, select static, otherwise dynamic. I am selecting static. Idle timeout, if you are attaching this IP address to the respective particular application, so how much time inactivity you can expect on that particular session from the respective user, you can change it from here. You can see here that it is in minutes, 15 minutes, 13 minutes, maximum 30 seconds. So let's suppose if you have one virtual load balancer application gateway and no traffic is coming and it is keeping for 30 minutes. So these are the idle time window, you can set it out. Okay, but I'm not going to set this thing. I'm just keeping it as it is. DNS level, I'm leaving it as it is because I don't need these things. I'm just selecting a subscription and I'm just deploying this thing in my VNet RG. This is my virtual. See, again, they are asking me the subscription. Again, they are asking me the resource group. Okay, so these things are really required. So once it is done, I can select the location. Okay, one important thing which you need to understand is that always, let's suppose, always remember this thing. Most of the learners got confused with this thing. Okay, so here you can see that you are deploying the public IP in central US, and tomorrow there is one virtual machine, okay, which is only having the private IP, and if you want to attach this public IP to this virtual machine, so then this virtual machine also and this public IP address should be in the same region. Got it? If you want to attach this public IP address to that resource which is in central US, that is possible. But let's suppose if it is in central US and it is in central India, then it won't be possible. Is it clear now? So public IP address should be in the same region where you are attaching the resources. Is it clear? Okay, so these things are there, which you these are the small things which you need to make sure before deploying, because once you deploy it, it cannot be changed, right? So now I'm going to deploy this thing in central US and I can click on create. So this will create my public IP address. Okay, so you can see that it is initializing the deployment. So you can see that your VM001 IP is created, right? This thing you can see. And tomorrow, if you want to attach, sorry, this is our IP, public IP is. So if you want to attach this, associate this public IP address, how you can do it? You can click on associate and you can select the respective. So if you want to associate with your load balancer, you can select the first option. Otherwise, if you want to associate with the network interface card means VM. Whenever you see this word network interface card in the public IP address, it means that they are talking about the server. Okay, whenever you see this thing while associating, you got this resource type as a network interface. Always remember that you're getting as a network interface, like for the VM. So you are associating this public IP to the VM. If you want to associate this public IP to the VM, click on the drop down, select the network interface, and then select the respective network interface available. Okay, I don't have such network interface available because I don't have any of the virtual machine. Is it clear, guys? Now let's discuss about the network security group. Okay, so network security group, what is network security group? Let's talk about the network security group. So if you see about the network, so network security group always works for your subnet level as well as your NIC card level. So network security group stands for, like, it's a full form of your network security group, NSG. It is a full form of your NSG, network security group. So the icon which you're able to see over here is an NSG. So it is NSG. This is also NSG. And where you are applying the NSG, you are applying the NSG at your subnet level or at the network interface card level. Okay, clear? So here also you can associate, and here also you can associate. Now how it has been validated? So it will be used to provide the security for your subnet level as well as on your NIC card level. Got it? So let's suppose this machine wants to talk to this server. Now the request will be flows from, so first it will, where the NSG should check first at the first level here, yes or no, right? NSG will be validated at this level, that is your one NIC card level. Now once the connection will flow from here, now it will reaches to your this subnet level. Again, which rule should be checked? Check at the NSG. Again, this NSG will be checked. Check means whether it is allowing or denying, whether it is allowing or denying. Now after that, again it will go to here, this subnet. Again it will be checked at this subnet level, yes or no? Is it clear? Are you getting? So once it is checked, again it will move to this particular, this virtual machine. Again the connection will be checked at this level, that is this NIC card level. So how many places the NIC NSG will be checked? 1, 2, 3, 4. Clear? So this is how your NSG will be evaluated. Okay, so if your connection is moving from here to here, it will be checked at every level. Okay, but it is up to you whether you want to associate the NSG at the subnet level or at the NIC card level. So it's just like a NSG is just like a kind of a rules which you are keeping to protect your virtual network. Okay, and which part of the virtual network, either or the subnet level or the NIC level. Okay, clear? So how we can create the NSG? You can go to here and just type network security groups. You can see from here, you can click the network security group and you can click on create. Okay, once you click on create, again it will ask you for the subscription and it will ask you for the resource group. Just select the resource group called VNet RG. Okay, and network security group NSG 001 you can select. Okay, and which region it is? Central US. Once it is done, you can click on review plus create. Okay, so this is just like you can associate it to the subnet level or to the network interface card level. So this is how you will create the network security group. So this your network security group is been created. So here what you're getting, here you're getting the particular thing called as inbound security rules. So basically when you're creating the network security group, you're getting by default 3 rules: inbound security rules and outbound security rule. Inbound means incoming. Okay, incoming connection on your resources. So if you talk about this thing, let's talk it like this. So here, when this connection is going outside this subnet, okay, so which rule is it will check? Outbound rule. Are you getting? Which rule it will check? Outbound rule. And when it will come inside your virtual network, which rule it will check? Inbound rule. Okay, it will check the inbound rule. Clear? So if it is going outside your subnet, it will check the outbound rule. And when it is coming inside the subnet or at the NIC level, so the inbound rule will be checked at this respective level. Similarly, the outbound rule in the first, it will be checked at this level. And if you see here, you can get these 3 rules. So by default, you are getting these 3 rules. And if you want to create, so by default they have given you these rules value, that is 65,000, 65,001, like that. But if you want to create your own rule, you can create your own rule within ranging from 100 to 4096. So if you want, so what does it mean? So rules which you're able to see in your screen, these are the rules which it has been created by the Microsoft. Okay, so it has been created by the Microsoft. And here you can see that in the outbound security rules, uh, uh, in the outbound security rules also you're getting these values, right? So this is the maximum value, 65,000, 65,001, 65,500. But if you want to create your own rule, you can take any value of the rule from between this. And let's suppose you have created tomorrow the rule number with 999. Okay, so it will be always greater than your 65,500 rule, let's suppose. Okay, because lower is the number, higher is the priority. Lower is the number, higher is the priority. So if so, what I just now told, if you want that you're not satisfied with these kind of rule and you want to override rule, you can create any rule ranging from 100 to 4096, and that number will be always be having a greater priority as compared to these rules. Is it clear? So how to associate the rule? You can see here, and the subnets, you can click on the subnet and you can click on associate, and you can select the respective virtual network, virtual subnet. Okay, one more thing, this needs to be in the same region where your virtual network or your network interface card is there. Okay, similarly, if you want to click on the network interface card, click on that and you can associate it from here. Okay, I don't have the network interface card available right now, so that's why I cannot show you. But this is how you can add or you can associate a respective subnet to the network interface card level. Clear? So these things we have discussed in the practical. Now next topic came for your discussion is your Azure Firewall. Okay, so now Azure Firewall is nothing but it is giving you the complete VNet protection for your whole environment. Okay, it is not only protecting your single subnet, or it is not only protecting your respective component, but it is providing the complete support for a whole of your network. Okay, so if you want, so here you can see that if you want to provision the virtual Azure Firewall, so you can deploy it within the network. Okay, within the Azure virtual firewall, and that will be help you to protect these network. This is one of the network and this is one of the network. So when you deploy your Azure Firewall within the central VNet, so this will be central VNet. Central VNet means a centralized virtual network which is in Azure, where you have deployed one resource called Azure Firewall. So it will traffically is denied by default. So by default, as soon as you create this Azure Firewall, the traffic will be automatically denied under your infrastructure, and it will be giving you the extra protection for your whole setup, environment setup. Okay, so this is how it has been working. Okay, this is how it has been working in the scenario. Clear? Now similarly, if you want to understand much in detail, so here you can see that you are having a respective virtual network. So here you can, so there is basically two things which you need to know, that is called hub and spoke architecture. That is called hub and spoke architecture. Now what do you mean by hub and what do you mean by spoke? Does anyone knows that? What do you mean by hub and what do you mean by spoke? Anyone? Okay, so let me tell you that hub is that virtual network which is connected to your on-prem. Okay, hub is that virtual network which is connected to your on-prem. So here you can see that this is hub virtual network which is having the multiple resources within it. And if that VNet is connected to the on-prem, so that will be a hub. Clear? That will be a hub VNet. Similarly, if you talk on the backend side called virtual network, so these are the some other virtual network which is deployed on your cloud side. Okay, so so these are the virtual network. This is one virtual network, this is another virtual network. If these virtual network are connected to your hub, that will be a spoke VNets. Okay, so I will repeat once again. If your virtual network is connected to on-prem, then it will be a hub VNet. Similarly, if your respective VNets, virtual networks, is connected to, this is one virtual network, VNet 01, this is VNet 02. Okay, and if you are connecting these two to this particular hub virtual network, what it is called is spoke virtual network. So that is called hub and spoke architecture. That is called hub and spoke architecture. So here you can see that we are having one resource called Azure Firewall. So it is, as soon as you are created this firewall in this VNet and you have connected these two network together using the pairing, using the connection, you have connected these two network together, automatically it will giving the start protection for this VNet and this VNet also. Are you getting? In a very simple words, if you have deployed this virtual net Azure network firewall here in this VNet, and these two networks are connected, right? So automatically it will give you the protection for these VMs in the inside the virtual networks. Okay. Similarly, here in the on-prem also it is connected. So this will be helping you to completely secure your environment as in one place. Is it clear? Okay, so these are the things. Now, next thing which we come across is your Azure DDoS protection. So Azure DDoS protection is stand for your Azure Distributed Denial of Service attack. Okay, so within this attack, what is happening? Uh, in this, some of the largest availability and security concern which customer are facing, that are moving to their application to the cloud. So let's suppose customer is facing some of the concern and they are scared of moving it to the cloud. So a DDoS attack, what happened actually in the DDoS attack? So it attempts to exhaust an application resources. So it will help you to make your application unavailable for the respective user, and that will be a target to the respective endpoint of the application. So in that case, what will happen? It will exhaust all your application resources, and it will make your application unavailable. Okay, so basically we are getting two DDoS protection for your servers. So one is basic is free, and another is standard. Okay, so these things, whenever you are deploying, why we are learning these things, why we are seeing these things? Because whenever we are deploying the respective VNet, okay, we are getting that DDoS protection standard. Do you want to choose for the standard one, or do you want to choose for the basic? You will getting by default, but if you want to go for the standard, what options it is coming? It combined with the application design best practices, provide enhanced DDoS mitigation feature to defend against DDoS attack. It will automatically turn to help the protect your specific Azure resource in the virtual network. So if you have, so there will be two options: basic and standard. So if you have selected this thing, it will automatically analyze the capabilities of your applications, and it will automatically provide the security for these kind of DDoS attacks for your application. Protection is simple to enable on any new or existing virtual network, and it is required no application of resource changes. Okay, so it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, and it will help you to protect your VNet. Okay, so that's what is the DDoS protection for you. Okay, so it's absolutely looks like this. Okay, so in this, what is happening? This is an attacker. Okay, so here what is happening? Attacker want to so this is your component of the virtual network deployed, right? So in this, your VNet has been deployed, but this attacker want to reach out to this VNet. So finally, what is happening? uh, it will directly come to here, but at this end, it will find that, okay, this someone has deployed the DDoS protection, or already it is enabled. So it will automatically protect you from some kind of DDoS attack, so where your application won't be getting harmed. Okay, so application will be secure. So these things are there as far as your DDoS protection attack is concerned. Okay, so what is stateful meaning in this particular thing? Okay, now last thing for our discussion is your hybrid connectivity model. Okay, so hybrid connectivity model, so this particular device, before we study about the hybrid connectivity model, we are having a particular device called as VPN gateway. Okay, so VPN gateway is a particular device which will help you to ensure that the traffic should be flowed in a very systematic way from your on-prem to the cloud. Okay, so let me explain you this. So the screen which you're able to see is there on the left hand side, it is a Azure Cloud. Okay, and on the right hand side, this is a on-prem client side. Let's suppose this particular Azure side needs to connect to the client side. How they can achieve it? They can achieve it using the VPN gateway. So VPN gateway is a particular tool or a service in Microsoft Azure which will help you to send the encrypted traffic from your Azure side to the cloud side. Okay, so once you send this traffic to the cloud side, it will be sent using this tunnel. So tunnel will help you to provide a secure transmission of your packets. Let's suppose this site or cloud site wants to contact your client office, okay, on-prem. So in this case, your VPN gateway plays a major role, okay, for the communication. Okay, now how the communication is actually happening, so that is a part of your hybrid connectivity model. So first, in that case, we are having one thing called as point to site connection. So point to site connection means here you are getting a particular, let's suppose this is one of the client, they are connecting from their respective laptops to the cloud side. So this is your Azure site and they are connecting from some point. This is one point, this is one point. So point to site. Point means, let's consider one scenario. This is one of the laptop. Let's suppose nowadays everyone is doing work from home, right? So first, what you are doing, you are performing, you're connecting to your respective office network. So in that case, what is happening, you are connecting with your respective network. That is, this will be point to site. So this will be connecting to the Azure site. So this will be a point to site connection, and it works on the internet connection. It works on the internet based connection. So if internet is there, well and good. If internet is not there, this will be of no use. Okay, so that's why, so various point has been created or established to be get connected to your cloud site. Clear? So that's called as point to site. Again, you can see here the VPN gateway is present, which will help you to send the encrypted traffic from your this side to the cloud side. Second, one more hybrid model, connectivity model, which you can see from your on-prem to the cloud is your site-to-site connection. Let's suppose I am connecting my client office, that is your on-prem, and I want to connect to the cloud side, that is called as Azure side. And this is your client side. So here you are connecting the client to site. So it is site to, again you are connecting site to site connection. You're connecting one office to the another office. That is called client site to site connection. Again, you're using for the encrypted traffic, you're using the VPN gateways. Okay, now this P2S, that is called point to site, and S2S, that is called site to site, both works on the internet based connection. So if internet is there, well and good. If internet is not there, there will be of no use. In order to overcome that scenario, we are having one more model called as express route connection. Okay, so what is express route? Express route connection will help you to establish the network connectivity model from your, so this is your client office and this is your cloud site. So in this, what is happening there, you are contacting your nearby ISP provider. Okay, so this is one partner edge at your end and another partner edge at the Microsoft end. So what is happening in this, in the express route circuit, what is happening? So the client is connecting to the partner edge, and after that it is, they are setting up the connection. So they will be setting up the fiber optics cable. Actually, it will be a fiber optics cable. It will be a fiber optics cable which will provide you a higher speed. Okay, even if the internet is not there, you do not need to rely on the internet. Definitely it will work you for the same. So this client side that is on-prem is connected to the cloud side or your Azure side. These are the Azure, right? Virtual network with the virtual machine. These are some of the cloud services like Outlook, your CRM, Office 365, like that. Okay, so in this case, you do not need to worry about the internet. If internet is not there, well and good. It's also fine, no issue, because here you are setting up the complete fiber optics cable from that. So you are having some peering location as the respective thing. In India, we are having the peering location in Mumbai and one in the Chennai. Okay, so these are the two places which we are having the location of peering. Peering means nearby connecting location to set up this partner edge. Okay, so how many connectivity models we have seen? We have seen 3, that is point to site to site. Both works on the internet based. Okay, and other thing is express route that works on the fiber optics cable. Okay, fiber optics cable will be a costlier one. Yes, absolutely correct. This will be costly as compared to these two because you are using the fiber optics cable. So you will be getting a good bandwidth, good speed in the express route connection. Okay, so these things are there from your hybrid connectivity model. If you have any doubt, let me know. We'll take your queries. The NSG and firewall seems like it does the same job. NSG is basically for your subnet level or for the network interface card level. Firewall is for whole your network, not only one virtual network, but a group of virtual network. Now let's talk about your IP part. Okay, so let me check what you have exactly asked. How the first IP will start from 0.4 because you said 5 are reserved. So here what is happening? Normally it start from here. Exactly, it follows like this. First 4, it should be first 4. Okay, it should be first 4 IP from the pool and last IP at the back end. Okay, so let's suppose last IP will be, okay, so it will be starting from the number which they are going to assign to your resource will be started from here. So it should not be first 3, it should be first 4. Yeah, there will be a slight correction, is that the first 4 IP address from the pool and last 1 IP address. Okay, so it will be like this. Clear? 10.0.0/16, it's a default virtual network given by Azure. Then everyone creates same VNet, right? So 10.0.0.0/16 is just a value which you can find in the Azure portal when you first time hit the creation of the virtual network. Depending upon use case, so you can deploy /8/16/24. I have question regarding firewall is on-premise to cloud. In hybrid model, how it is being done? In hybrid model, if you have shown, I have shown you this diagram actually. If you look here, this hub and spoke architecture. Okay, so in the hub and spoke architecture, what is happening? You're having certain resources deployed, and in here you're connecting the hub VNet. So here you are getting the protection for these in the, so that's why it is recommended for the firewall. So if you're deploying the Azure Firewall, it is always recommended to choose for the hub and spoke network topology. So once you choose the hub and spoke network topology, definitely it will be helpful to provide the security for these VNets as well as those resources which is present in this VNet as well. Clear? Understood? That's why it is being advised to deploy it in the hub and spoke architecture. Can you brief about the CIDR, please? Okay, sure. So just a basic explanation of CIDR, which you can note it down or you can understand like this. So CIDR is basically, this is the normal IP address I have written. After that, I am putting a slash. So CIDR is identified with the slash operator. Okay, slash operator means you are not using only one IP address, but you are using a group of IP address starting any number from 8 to 32. So this will be any number will be, you can put it, any number you can put it from 8 to 32. Okay. Why? Because the total subnet mask will be 32 bits. Okay. So these things is there. So this is like how we are designing our particular address space for the VNet. Okay. So this is about the CIDR notation, that is classless inter-domain routing notation. CIDR is nothing but a respective division of the various IP address which you are assigning to your respective VNet. I hope the session was informative and thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.